Hello again and welcome to another episode of the TryPod, and this week we will be previewing round 25.
Let go!
Let go! We're back, and it's a very special episode this week. Obviously, second last, round of the season. And this week we've got a very special guest joining us all the way from Emerald, the Mayor of Emerald, and our Roosters expert, one of the biggest fans of the Roosters that we have here today. And it's Adam Heath. How you going, mate?
Very well, thank you. Actually, I'm a bit crook, so sorry about the croaky voice.
Yeah, you do sound a little bit crook, mate.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like the Chooks, unfortunately, at the moment, after overcoming the Broncos.
That's very true. Yeah, so we've got a huge pod for everyone today. We've got a ton of best bets. We've got a lot to get through after an epic round, but we've got to get straight into it with Heathy, as he often does.
He's a busy man.
And actually, I think you're driving to the doctor now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm driving to the physio, actually. So
yeah, you can relate to the Roosters. You've had a fair few doctor's appointments in the last 12 months. It's probably fair to say.
Yeah, it's fair to say, you just can't be too careful these days, really.
And that is something that you always practice is caution and precaution.
Yeah, well, you've got to go your hardest at the time, but, after the game, you've got to go get checked up. You've got to make sure that there's nothing adverse is happening. And
absolutely right. And you're doing all well now, Heathy? You're all healthy?
Yeah, currently, but you never know what's around the corner, really. There could be an injury. There could be anything could happen. So
that's true.
It's always good to stay vigilant. Go get yourself checked, and slight sign of injury, put some ice on it.
Yeah. That's a lesson for us all.
Yeah, sound advice from the Bareback Bandit.
Mate, the Roosters have won 10 in a row. I know you're pretty happy about that. I was talking to you probably 2 months ago, maybe 8 weeks ago, after they played the Titans, and they were pretty average. They sunk to the Titans level that day, but we said when they could win ugly, when you can play terribly and still win, that's, ominous signs for the rest of the comp. And they haven't really looked back. You see them taking it out this year?
Yeah, I certainly did see them taking it out. And actually, I thought the couple of games before the Broncos, we actually didn't play that well. But again, we were winning. We were doing enough to win. We were having bad patches in games, not playing for the full 80. But certainly these injuries have made me think twice. But I'm the Roosters diehard, obviously, but I still think we can win without Pearce and Hargreaves.
Well, I mean, when I try and look at a team, and we're in the second last round of the season, we're always looking for value. And when I try and figure out who I think are the true contenders and who's going to win the comp, I think about teams at their best, because you've got to be playing at your best in the finals, and most teams are. Yeah. And whose best is the best. And all right, you said you're without Pearce, but what's the latest prognosis on his injury? Because my understanding was he should be back for the finals.
I don't think he's going to be back for the first week of the finals. I think they were talking closer to 5 weeks.
That could be dangerous, especially with a hammy. You just don't know if he rushes back as well.
They say that the lower leg hammy, like he's done as well, takes a little bit longer to recover just because of the more left blood flow to that area. So it'll be hard to say. That could be. I mean, they're probably going to be pretty tight-lipped about it, but worst case, I reckon 5 weeks. Probably best case, first week of finals.
Yeah, I guess you know a fair bit about getting blood flow to that lower area and tight lips as well.
I thought you were going to say tight-lipped.
That probably brings me to another question I want to ask you. You probably know you got your finger on the pulse of the Roosters. How good is Jackson Hastings then? Because he could be under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, so I actually rate him. I think he's very good backup. He's been playing dummy half, only 15 minutes a game for us. But Pearce was actually rested a few weeks ago, and that was really good because it gave him a full game. And I think he can slot in there pretty well and just play second fiddle to Maloney without having to do too much. I mean, we have so much talent outside him in the back line anyway. He doesn't have to try and be the star of the show, which is pretty important.
Yeah, that's probably a luxury that you've had him on the bench and you've blooded him a little bit already.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that because we've got so much talent, we can just play to structure and he doesn't have to come up with too much, the ad-lib stuff. off the cuff. So I think he'll slot in quite nicely, and I'm not too concerned there. I think that even if we had to go without Pearce for a bit longer than we thought, we'd probably still be okay.
So your bigger concerns were your Hargraves then?
Yeah, that is my bigger concern, because he's been easily by a mile, for me anyway, the best forward in the game for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Just with some of just inspirational stuff.
He's the best forward in the game.
He is, mate. I would argue that this he's probably been the best forward this year on his form for the past 5, 6 weeks. It's just been ridiculous. So I would have to.
He's been pounding through defences like yourself. But given the injuries to obviously your team, the Roosters, and obviously Morgan going down for the Cowboys, and obviously Inglis for Souths, Brisbane is still relatively healthy. Likewise with the Bulldogs. Who would you say? Look, if you've got a team or teams that are the biggest threat to the Roosters, because they are still premiership favourites.
Yeah, actually, the team that I think are really a smokies are the Doggies. I think they haven't got close to their potential so far this year, and I think if Desi usually gets his teams fairly well primed before finals footy, so I think they're a danger. And for the Roosters particularly, like the Gummies, we've lost 2 to the Gummies. We just seem to get dragged down into their dull, boring game.
Yeah, of course, when you say the Gummies, for the uninitiated out there, you're referring to the Sharkies. I was going to ask you, are you scared of the Sharkies? They've owned you this year, beaten you twice.
Yeah, I'm not scared of them. I think once it comes to finals footy, cream rises to the surface. At the end of the day, the Gummies probably aren't going to be... I don't think they're going to be top 4. I don't think we're probably going to have to worry too much about them. But there is some history there. They have our measure at the moment, but I'm not too worried about the Gummies.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If you find yourself against the Sharks in the finals, that's not the worst. It probably means you lost first round in the top 4, but that's not the worst seed you can place. There's other good teams. I'm with you on the Dogs, actually. You say Smokies. I don't think they're under the radar anymore. We called them, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. This team, should not be 8th in the competition. This team is loaded. We had them against the Broncos last week. And I think everyone's starting to realise that they're absolutely legit.
Definitely.
Both of you called the grand final. You said Dogs,
Well,
Roosters.
I said Dogs, Roosters, and it's too late to sort of jump on the Bulldogs bandwagon now, because they have moved into 4th favourites for the comp, obviously, behind the Roosters, Cows and Broncos. Heathy, how important is the minor premiership to you guys? Is it worth sort of risking more injuries like you sort of have gotten over the past couple of weeks? Or, you do obviously want one of those top 2 spots, don't you?
You do. You want a top 2 spot, but, the minor premiership isn't that important. We've won it the last 2 years, and I think they said only out of the last 8 premiership winners, only 2 out of the last 8 have been minor premiers, so it doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just about getting that top 2 spot, and I think we shouldn't have too much trouble doing that, even with a fairly tough last 2 games.
Yeah, you've got to, if you can get a top 2 spot, you're not flying to Townsville in week 1 of the finals, and that's something you definitely like to avoid. We're going to break down the Manly Roosters game. We might not have time to keep you on, but have you got a tip for the game?
Yeah, I can't go past the Roosters there. I think Manly were pretty poor last week, and I just think the Roosters pack, even without Warrior Hardgraves, are just going to be too big for Manly.
Yeah, you're bringing back Moa.
Moa's coming back, and the Roosters just have a lot of depth in their pack at the end of the day. And I'm not sure if Jennings is in or out, actually, which could be...
He's out. He's out, actually, but Punny Dow's back, so... when you're 3 times over the salary cap, certainly helps to field a good team, even with 3, superstars out.
Yeah, well, you only have the salary cap if you get caught.
All right, mate, I can't let you go without asking you one more question that people want to know. All right, come October, who's your GF?
Look, there's a lovely lass, actually, from Emerald, but I can't remember her name.
Is it the 36-year-old?
Look, she's fairly, 5'4", brown hair, just, lovely, great personality, really.
Jeez, I could have sworn you were going to say Sophie. Maybe rekindle
sorry,
something.
who?
But, no, never mind.
I could have sworn you would have said Roosters, Bulldogs or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's
Talk
what
about the grand final, mate. Come on, get your head out of the gutter.
Come on,
grand
Ethan.
final.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
I'll have to probably go with the Doggies and Roosters as well. I just think that the Roosters, I'm pretty sure, are going to be there. And I think, Dogs, I think they're a danger team. They're just as you said, I guess they haven't really snuck under the radar anymore, and they could just be a nasty surprise for a few come finals time.
And you know a thing or two about a nasty surprise, brother. We really appreciate having you on, mate. You've had a cult following. You've one of the infamous characters of the pod.
Yep.
We'll touch base with you, I'm sure, again, some stage during the finals.
Definitely. All the best with your check-up.
I'm hoping I manage to touch down as well. All right, see you, boys.
Cheers,
Good
mate.
luck to you, mate.
See ya.
That's obviously our resident Roosters expert, Adam Heath, all the way from up in Emerald.
Yeah, and
he does know his stuff.
It was topical to get the Roosters on. They're now at the top of the ladder, 10 in a row. They are the title favourites, but there's a lot of concerns.
Definitely.
They've got 3 top-line players out this week.
Yep.
And no one knows them better than Heathy. So.
Oh, exactly. And Jennings will be back, but obviously Hargraves out for the season, and who knows when Pearce will be back. So it's going to be a tough run home for him.
Definitely a bit of uncertainty. So before we get into the round, it's like we better introduce ourselves to a few new listeners. We seem to have gotten a lot of new followers this week. I think
people like you when you win.
It was a momentous week for us.
Yep.
We've won 7 best bets in a row.
Yep.
Including picking underdogs. Let's go back a few weeks ago. We said we had the Doggies at $3 odds to beat the Broncos.
Yes.
We called it on the pod. We said Bunnies would take out the Cows up in Townsville.
Mm-hmm.
People thought we were crazy. We took the Knights, the absolutely luckless Knights over
against
Tigers.
The Red Hot Tigers.
Yep, they won that there. But then we took it to another level to win with 2 20-plus point underdogs in back-to-back games. People, just about laughed us out of the gym.
They did, yeah.
When we said that we thought the Eels could take on Manly and that the Knights could beat the Storm, but you've got to respect that we know what's going on, and we sometimes we'll look for the ugly duckling.
Definitely,
to find a result.
We often look towards the ugly duckling because no one else looks there, and we're winning more than anyone else, really.
Yeah, and we've had people ask us this week, like, are you guys prophets? Are you wizards? Are you oracles? And look, the answer is no, we're not prophets, but listen to our tips. We will make you profit.
We put in hard work.
We do.
We do study the games. We do study the lineups, and we use betting theory. Not like all these other clowns that just give out tips willy nilly. You really got to break it down from a betting perspective, and that's what we try and do here.
Yeah, and sorry, I've got a sore throat myself. Actually, I've been doing too much talking lately. Obviously,
talking.
Yeah. I'm a uni lecturer and structural engineer by trade. Yourself, you're a real estate agent, but an economics major, and we do kind of. Read the betting markets. Mm-hmm. That's what we kind of try and do, and find inefficiencies and find handicaps that just aren't right. And, last week the first thing we said on the pod was that the Eels and Knights plus 20.5 was too high, and we can tell you when the line is just a bit wrong, and we're not going to win 100% of the time.
No.
But we've proven beyond doubt. Our records, 126 to 71 on 50-50s. We win a lot more than we lose. And I just want to say as well, some people tell me that they bet all our best bets every week, and they've been killing it, and they're really happy. But I know not everyone does that. You can be listening to this, and you might be just someone that chucks on a multi every week. But if you listened to the pod last week and you heard us say the Eels and the Knights can win, you might not have believed us, but that might have kept you from putting Manly and the Storm into your multi. Throw them in at $1.09, a little bit of extra value. If you can save a few bad bets. By taking our advice, and maybe our advice keeps you off a game, that's as good as putting on a winning bet.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you feel even better not putting on a bad bet, and it does end up
especially
losing.
if you were going to bet Manly or the Storm at $1.09, you would have put a decent chunk of money on that.
So, definitely, yeah. Because they're $1.10. You probably would have chucked at least $100 on, and then you're only winning $10. So.
And I mean, that was just never a good line or a good price for those teams. That we saw those games as a lot more close than the books did,
definitely.
And we're able to take advantage. And we've made a lot of money betting games like that in the last few years, and people ask me about my own betting, and I do bet on all our own best bets. But the problem is when you win as regularly and at a kind of progressive clip that we do, it gets harder and harder to get big bets down. Mm-hmm. And we've obviously been banned from a couple of sites. We got our maximum bets limited, and that really frustrated us. And that's one of the reasons we started up the pod, because we can't win as much as we used to. We're limited because the books are onto us. But it doesn't mean you can't win. That's why we're trying to, share the love.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And all we ask is that you guys, share it with your friends. Like, we're giving out free bets. We're giving it out on a Wednesday. We're posting it on a Friday,
Well, that's it, yeah. And I mean, there's lots of sites out there, where you have to pay money to subscribe, where you have to pay for each best bet. And to be honest, they're not winning at a clip that we are. We are bringing out a pod so you guys can listen to us and get a breakdown of each individual game. And then even, it's easy enough for you guys to go out and bet on our best bets. We do post them on usually a Friday afternoon, but now that they're Thursday games, we'll post them on a Thursday arvo. But it's easy enough to go out and bet on them. But in saying that, you can listen to our betting tips, our strategies, some betting techniques that we use, and then apply that to your own betting. And that'll help you through other sports as well. Because to be honest, most of the stuff that we learnt is from professional gamblers over in the States that bet mostly on college football, on NFL, and even those guys over there say, and we've said this for a while, that they are one of the most efficient markets in the world because there's so much money flowing through in NFL bets and that kind of thing that it evens it up. There's not as many opportunities. But here in the NRL, there's not that much money getting put down, so there are still inefficiencies to be found, and I think there's certainly more value that you can get from the NRL than the NFL and larger sports like the NBA.
Yeah, I've followed all sports around the world, bet on them all, and I really think we're so lucky that we have a great opportunity to make consistent money in the NRL because the Australian markets just are years behind the international markets. Definitely. That's awesome for you, and everything we do is free as well, so you can't argue with that. 126 and 71 so far. We've got a few more best bets for you tonight.
Definitely.
Let's get into round 25, brother.
Let's jump into it. So Thursday night showdown, we've got the Rabbits hosting the Broncos. Now this line's sitting at about 3.5, 4 points, with the total sitting at 37.5 to 38.5, and Brisbane are favoured.
Yeah, South Sydney was so poor last week on Friday night. We had a best bet on the game for it to be under in tries. We really thought two elite defensive teams in the Bunnies and the Dogs with a couple of offensive weapons out, like Kiri and Luke. They just really didn't show up again.
No.
I mean, you can give some credit to the Dogs because that's a hell of a team. We spoke about them before. But no, really poor performance from South Sydney. I expect them to be much better this week with Luke and Kiri back in the team. I know GI is out, but maybe that's going to cause public to overreact.
I think there's definitely been an overreaction here. And I mean, Johnson shifting back to fullback isn't the worst thing in the world. He's a solid fullback.
He's underrated. He played for Australia in the Anzac Test.
That's on the it, yeah. And look, I think there has been a bit of an overreaction by the public here. I mean, we've got to remember, South Sydney is the champs from last year. They are at home and they're getting 4 points at home. Plus the fact that Wayne Bennett's come out during the week saying that, look, the main thing is for the Bronx to stay healthy. He's obviously seen what's happened with some star players from South, Cows and the Roosters getting injured. And the most important thing for him is to be healthy going into the finals. Plus, he's come out and said first, second, third for the minor premiership. Doesn't really bother him, So he may rest some players this week, and you've got to look out for some of those quotes from the coaches and the players to sort of gauge what's going to happen there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, we're in round 25. You've got to be looking at the ladder, and you've got to be looking at what's at stake. And I think at stake here is top 4 spot for South Sydney. Now that is a huge difference between coming 4th or 5th. You've got a couple of beat up teams in the top 4 with you, like the Cows and the Roosters that are vulnerable. You get yourself into that top 4, you're one win away from a bye and a home preliminary final. You get yourself in that bottom 4, it's a dogfight. The Bunnies absolutely have to have this game. They need it for blood this week. Mm-hmm. They're going to turn up, they're going to put in a hell of an effort. And I think we've spoken about injured player theory before. When your best player's out, the other players lift. And I think they really will. I think they win this game outright, so definitely want to take the +4.
I agree. Yep, absolutely. I think we're taking South +4, but I like it even more than that. And you can find the Brisbane Broncos team total under 20.5 points. I think this will be, relatively low scoring. It's one of those kind of games where you've got two good defenses. But I like the ability for South to put on points, and I do think they win this outright. So I like Brisbane to go under the 20.5. But because Brisbane are favoured by 4 points, you can also find a pretty good team total on South.
Yeah, the lowest, and when you want to play a team over, you want to look for the lowest number, and so we always say try and get as many sites as you can. Definitely. And the lowest Bunnies team total is 17.5, and that's pretty commonly found on most of the sites. So I think Bunnies over 17.5 is a pretty good play. They could just score 3 tries. Adam Reynolds is a laser beam, most likely going to convert them. Plus, there's an ability to take penalties in what could be a bit of an arm wrestle game. Sounds like we've got 3 best bets.
3 best bets for the Thursday night. So kicking off our week well. Next up, we've got probably the second best game of the weekend. We've got Manly hosting the Roosters. Now, this game's sitting at approximately pick'em at the moment. Pick'em, for all you new listeners, I guess, is when both teams are essentially $1.90. There's no favourite, there's no underdog. So all you have to do is pick a side. And the total's sitting at 38.5.
Yeah, and you can look ahead and you can see the odds for the upcoming round quite often if you've got Sportsbet, if you've got Ladbrokes. And I was looking at the odds for this game, and it was both teams right around the $1.90 mark. And I, obviously knew, as we said last week when we tipped the Eels, and what a game that was, Eels Manly. Crazy game, but pretty enjoyable for the pod.
Definitely.
But I said Manly's not that great. They've got an awesome pair of halves. They've got some skilled backline players that are probably past their best, and they've got a below average forward pack, and they're not a contender. And when they put it all together, they look really good, and they're a kind of team that can get on a roll, and it was a little bit overvalued, as was proven on Sunday. And I really wanted to put a lot of money on the Roosters in this spot. I thought the Roosters are a far better team than Manly. But then we had Rhea Hargraves, Pearce and Jennings all wiped out. Now I think that actually brings this game back to pretty even. Manly embarrassed on a Sunday afternoon that they had to have that win to make the 8. Now they're 1 win and a 30-point differential outside of the 8, which means they're going to have to win their final 2 games, and the Dragons are going to have to lose their final 2. It's pretty unlikely, but they wouldn't have given up yet. They're going to be playing for their season. You don't want to bet against a team that's playing for their season when they're at home.
Definitely.
That's why I don't have a best bet on this game.
Yeah, and I'd love to bet Roosters in this spot. Like you said, if we take our eyes back a few days ago, Roosters look great in this spot, playing for the minor premiership, but then 3 players, 3 of their best players go down. But on the same token, people overreact to that information and sort of think, oh shoot, now Manly's going to win because you've got 3 great Roosters players out. But by the same token, Manly would just look shocking last week, so no one's rushing out to bet on them either.
And Matt Ballin out for the season too, so that's a key player for Manly's out as well.
That's right. So, I don't have a play on this game either. 2 sides that probably no one's rushing out to bet on, really. And I don't like that. I can see this game going either way. So, moving on to the Saturday, we've got the Eels hosting the Sharks. Now this line's sitting at 4.5, and the total sitting at 41.5 to 42.
Jeez, I aged a few years watching that Eels Manly game. All Sunday I was looking forward to it. Some people probably thought, oh, what's the Sunday other game? Parramatta Manly, that's not a very good game, going to be a whitewash. But I just had a lot of faith that it was going to be a good game, like that the Eels were going to bring it to them, and with nothing to lose, and with a really solid, forward pack full of muscle, as they showed, and a couple of stars like Hopewadi back in the back line, and who can go past Red Radra?
Yeah,
we called
absolute
it
monster.
At the start of the year. He's just an excitement machine. He is leading the comp in tries scored.
Correct.
On a team that's 14th on the ladder.
Yes.
He's incredible to watch. So they're actually quite a solid team. They're going to get back Tim Manor, who's their captain and front rower, who didn't even play on Sunday. Imagine if he played. And imagine if a few of the bounces of the ball went their way against Brookvale, because there was some ridiculous plays in that game. Some unbelievable plays in the in-goal. They dropped the ball onto a silver platter for Manly to give them 6 points early in the second half, which a lot of people would have thought would have broken the back of the Eels.
Yes.
To certainly let them back in the game. There was a 40-20 that was Bakers away from the sideline for 20 metres. Nothing went the Eels' way, and yet they actually won in Brookvale.
Yes, they hung tough.
Who would have thought? So I actually really like the Eels again this week, but you can't go past a Sharkies team that can win and get into the top 4.
Well,
is fighting for the top 4 as well. You've got to respect the ability of the Sharks too.
Yeah, that's the thing. The problem is, the Sharks are obviously eyeing off a top 4 spot, and now that looks even more in grasp with obviously the Rabbits losing last week along with the Storm. So Cronulla really have to believe that they can lock up a top 4 spot there, and given, getting into the top 4 there, they're going to be playing the minor premiers, and that could be, the Roosters, who they've beaten twice this season. It could be the Cows, who they have beaten twice this season. So, they're going to be playing for their lives as well, but I don't like this game at all. I think the line at 4.5 sitting right about where it should, and same with the total. So I don't have a play on this game. But what I would like to just quickly mention is we don't put bets on every game because the odds makers often get it right, and they often set the lines correctly. So we don't play on every game because we don't see value in every game. If you had to play on every game, we could give you a tip, but we try and just give you the absolute best of the whole round. So no play on the Para-Cronulla game. Next up, we got the Knights.
Nothing wrong from leaving it alone. Sometimes.
No, sometimes you just got to leave it alone. But we like taking the ugly ducklings.
Sometimes you got to do that too.
Yeah. Next up, we got the Knights hosting the Bulldogs. This line sitting at 8.5 to 9.5 points. The total sitting at 41.5 to 42.5.
Yeah, the issue I've got here is they're two teams that I actually really like both of them.
We have liked them all year.
Yeah, the Knights just getting a little bit more healthy forward pack that they've got now. And as they showed, 2 weeks in a row, and an awesome performance on Monday night. They're playing hard for Bedsy. It's still a talented backline, and they're missing, in my opinion, their best player, Jared Mullen. And this is why earlier in the year I thought that they were going to make the top 8. But they've had just a torrid run with injuries. That allowed us to get some value on them. And if you've been betting the Knights in the last few weeks, you've been making money. But I don't know if you want to take the points this week. This Canterbury team is ruthless. It could be the best team in the comp right now. What a weekend Canterbury had. They pantsed the Bunnies.
Yep.
GI got injured. The Broncos lost. Roosters lost 3 players. The Cowboys lost 3 players. I was rushing to the betting window to get some future money on Canterbury, but the odds were already pretty prohibitive.
They were double digits before last week, and now they're into 5s and 6s.
If you're a Canterbury fan, you had a great weekend, and they could just as easily roll in this game too. So once again, I'm going to have to stay away.
No, I'm going to have to pass as well. And I mean, you look at this Newcastle side and you sort of think if they didn't beat the Storm last week and they just got pants like most people thought they would, this line would be double digits for sure. And then you'd almost have to like Newcastle. But because of what they did to the Storm, just absolutely dismantling them on a Monday night, which everyone saw, this line sitting under the 10 mark, which doesn't give you much value on Newcastle. But at the same token, Canterbury are just ruthless. So I think this line's probably where it should be. 2 sides that we really like. I'm going to pass. And that will wrap up the first 4 games of the round. But before we do anything else, let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
Summer bodies are made in the winter. Find F Sanity on Instagram today and train F Sane or stay the same.
Yeah, good old F Sanity, long-time sponsor of the pod. And obviously he doesn't just have Instagram now, he does have Facebook. And the likes are creeping up there as well. Obviously, he's got his Twitcasting going. He was the feature video on Twitcasting for a day, and I think he got, 500 views at once. Birds from all over the world watching him DJ.
He's DJing with his shirt off, and if you've seen him with his shirt off, you're not going to be surprised at those kind of numbers. So if you're into that kind of thing, check him out.
Yeah,
F Sanity on Facebook.
F Sanity.
Massive supporter of the pod. Guys, as we've said, we're here for the people. That's what we really enjoy, giving out best bets. And just don't be shy to contact us. Every week we get a few questions, just people. It can be on a range of things, signing up to sites, trying to get the best links, finding out about the best specials, asking us, is there value here? Just asking us, helping improve their betting IQ.
Definitely.
And we're more than happy to do it. So, feel free. You got a question, post it on our page, comment on one of our posts by all means.
Yeah, hit us up.
And we did get a question about college football, which we won't, go into too much detail tonight because we're just had our heads down trying to really study the NRL
Definitely.
for you guys and haven't looked closely at the college football. But we want to say, obviously you did 4 years at Boise State University.
Yes, correct.
You're a tennis scholarship there, but you obviously
Fiesta Bowl champs.
Yeah, you trained with what was one of the great college football teams.
It was one of the greatest Boise State football teams
ever
to come
I think
around.
That team lost 1 game in 3 years.
Yeah, that's right. I think that was about 6 years ago.
And there were a lot of pros on that team that you got to know pretty well. And you've got a fair few stories of your times. The high and fast times of Boise State. And true. That's probably just a lead into this summer. We've got a few more weeks of awesome footy. We're going to make people as much money as we can in the NRL. But something to look forward to if you're a college football fan or an American football fan, or even if you're not. I got into it. I think you got me into college football when you were over there. For me, it just fills that footy void.
Oh,
it's
definitely.
Perfect. The season starts up in late September, just when the NRL winds down, and you got
and don't think just because the NRL season's winding down, we're going to disappear for 6 to 8 months. We're not. Because initially we did the pod about college football, about the NFL, and also the NBA. So there's numerous sports that'll fill your
That's
void,
it.
and we'll have bets coming all year round.
We've got EPL covered as well. We've got acclaimed journo over there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had a winning record of 75% against the spread betting on American football. In fact, we still have yet to lose a game of NFL. And you've obviously got Jared Hayne, who killed it again on
Yes,
Monday
he
night
is killing
against
it.
the Cowboys.
They're all going to be eating
he really-
Vegemite over here soon.
He is exceeding. That was nice.
Yeah, that's good. That's what he said, eh?
Yeah.
He said, "G'day, mate."
He's exceeding my expectations every single week, and I've got high expectations for him.
I think he's going to
It's
make the roster.
Yeah, I think without question he's making a roster, and then it's only upwards from there. What
Well,
opportunities?
Sportsbet's already paying out on him playing an NFL game.
Yeah,
And that was
exactly.
31-1 if you cast your eye back about a year.
I mean,
So-
look, a year ago he was winning the wooden spoon in the NRL.
Mhm.
A year from now, will he be getting a Super Bowl?
Probably not,
He
no.
can use the wooden spoon. In the
Yeah, I
Super
like it.
Yeah.
I see what you did there, but not with Colin Kaepernick at
so
QB.
college football, that's also really exciting. They've got a playoff system. My advice is if you can listen to our pod, you can get some good value, bet on your favourite team, and then no matter what game you're watching, you're hoping for upsets. It's always exciting.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not just like the NRL where you've got 8 games on a weekend. College football, you have dozens and dozens of games on over the weekend, each and every one which you can bet on. So there's a lot of value to be found there because there's just so many games, and handicappers have a hard time getting every single game right. So we find a lot of value in the CFB as well.
And we've got a couple of really close friends to the pod that seriously know a lot about the pigskin.
Yes.
And tossing the old pigskin. So shout out to them. Look, what I'm hearing is Ohio State, who won the first ever playoff last year, are just as stacked this year.
Correct.
They have 3 different professional prospect quarterbacks, and instead of moving to another school to play starting quarterback,
Yep.
all 3 are staying on the same team. One of them's going to play wide receiver. That's how loaded
Yeah, they're
they
absolutely
are.
loaded.
I've got an outside tip, could be worth some value. We'll talk a lot more about this in a month or two, but USC, that's a team that kind of cheated a little bit with the academic side of the sport,
Yes.
and had a lot of sanctions and weren't allowed to recruit many players last few years, and they're back. They've got no restrictions on recruiting. They're recruiting a lot of top athletes because
slight restrictions still, yeah.
USC. That's one of the prime blue collar or
Oh,
blue
definitely.
chip
Yeah,
colleges to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, obviously they had 50 scholarships to give out last year, and the max is 85. And this year the sanctions have been lifted slightly again, so they've got 75. But even they were solid last year.
And just keep your eye on them. They've got a quarterback who's legit. He played really well the last couple of years, Cody Kessler.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you like your American football, there's going to be plenty more of that for you.
Definitely. Plus,
next
Ohio
summer.
State are going to be stacked because even you've heard of Mia Khalifa, haven't you?
I can't say I have.
Oh, yeah, right. Anyway, Mia Khalifa goes to she goes to USC, and she was trying to, bring the Ohio State QB over there, but he said, no, thank you. She said, I'll hook you up with all my porn star friends. Haven't read it?
Is she a porn
You've
star,
read
is
it. Yeah, you've read it.
I'm not as familiar with her work as you might be.
Yeah, anyway.
Anyway, let's move back to round 25.
Moving back into things, we got the Storm hosting the Cowboys. This line's sitting at about 2.5 to 3.5 points. The Storm are favourites. And the total sitting at a really low 35.5. You can get as high as 37.5 though.
That is a low total.
Really low total, isn't it?
But it's an important game for both teams, so you don't necessarily see a ton of points in this one. Melbourne only managed 6 against the Knights.
Correct.
This is another game. When I looked a week ahead, I was sure we'd be having best bets on the Cows.
Yes.
The Cows are a far better team than the Storm. The Cows, if they get Mike Morgan back and Tarmel back, which neither of them are out for the season, as far as I know, although they're not short injuries either. That's still a team I think can go all the way.
I agree, yeah.
So they're better than Melbourne, but the issue is, we've got no James Tarmel, we've got no Michael Morgan playing. We've got a team that put on 50 straight points that everyone, knows is legit, led by Jonathan Thurston, going up against a team that
got embarrassed
on a Monday night at home.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. You do not want to play a team you don't want to play on a team that's just had their best performance, especially against a team that's just had their worst performance, because, no one's as good as their best game, no one's as bad as their worst.
Well, and the reason being, to break it down simply, is look at North Queensland, and let's just forget about the injuries for a second. North Queensland has an absolutely stunning victory. They win by, 34 points. all the public rushes out to bet on that team the next week, so the value goes down. And then you look at another team. Let's say they're playing a team that just got embarrassed on a Friday night game. Everyone saw them just get embarrassed by a shitty Knights team. No one is rushing out to bet on Melbourne. So, that's the kind of thing that we look for, a team that got embarrassed the week before against a team off a really good win, where we think, maybe the team that got embarrassed isn't quite as bad as that loss.
Yeah, it's called recency bias. People overreact to the last thing they saw. Mm-hmm. And as bettors, we've got to not do that. We've got to just remember that, the bigger sample size gives a truer reflection of future performance than what happened last week. So that's telling us to take Melbourne here. And they are pretty healthy, other than, Slater, who's been out for quite a few weeks. But Munster's done well to cover him. Mm-hmm. So it's... everything's telling me that Melbourne is the right side in this game, but I'm not going to bet against JT and a superior Cows. I'm going to leave it alone.
Yeah, everything about betting tells you that you should go out and bet the Storm, but North Queensland has had 2 very publicised injuries over the weekend, so people from that are probably rushing out to bet Storm a little bit too, so the value's gone there, so I'm leaving this game alone as well. Next up, we got the Tigers hosting the Warriors. This line sitting at 6 to 6.5 points, and the total sitting at a high 46.5 to 47.
And as you said, the last 4 games we didn't give out one best bet. When you can make a case to bet on both sides or against both sides, you probably know there's not a ton of value on one side, and it's perfectly fine to stay away.
Oh, definitely.
But I do see a bit of value in this game. And look, for our new fans, there's a couple things that we never lay, and that's over 6 points. And women.
Yeah, true.
And the line here is between 6 and 6.5. So I can bend our rules and make an exception because I want to lay the points with the West Tigers here. Embarrassing loss against the Sharkies. And
correct.
Cost us a couple of best bets.
Yes, they did.
We gave out a late best bet. And, our best bet looked pretty good when the Tigers had pulled it back to 24-18. Mm-hmm. They were all in the game up to their eyeballs. And then Valentine Holmes' intercept try just broke their back. And they end up losing by 20 points.
Yeah.
But this West Tigers team is actually fully healthy. It's young. It's still got energy and still trying to build something here.
Definitely.
And they're at home, and I think they're going to win this game really comfortably. Compare that to a Warriors team that is in tatters.
They are absolutely in a shambles, and they've been struggling without Sean Johnson lately. And I just cannot see them putting on any sort of points whatsoever. I think West absolutely dominate this game. I think we definitely lay the 6 points. I think it's a cheap line. We don't often like laying sort of a converted try or more, but I think in this case we'll make an exception. But another thing, the Tigers have been working on their defence a lot. The coach has come out and said that earlier on in the year, as we discussed. He is going to be fuming that they let in so many points last week against a shitty Sharks offense. So they're going to be D'ing up like maniacs this week. I am looking at the Warriors having absolutely zero offensive, prowess at all at the moment without Sean Johnson in there. And I don't think they get many points on the board here. I think we should look at the New Zealand try total under the 4 because the total game score is so high.
Yeah, this is one of the highest totals of the season. I think actually that Wests are going to try and go back to the grindhouse. They want to build a team that can compete to make the top 8 and beyond in future years. And I think they want to practice good habits. And you're right, Tim Sheens will clamp down on the fact they let in 40. And then the Warriors let in 50 last week. And, if they do turn up in this game, I think they're going to just be desperate to claw out a result and not get embarrassed. So that's leading me towards a slightly lower scoring game than what people expect, but I do think the Tigers win comfortably and they've got a lot of weapons. So rather than taking the total under, I think I've seen the try line around 8.5 or 9 tries, which is huge.
One of the highest of the whole
season.
season.
Warriors under 4 tries even better. I think they really struggle to score that many tries. Take 5 to beat you, and you'll just need them to get 3 or less to win that bet. That's what I expect with no Johnson, as you said. Also, Jacob Lillyman got injured last week. That's an origin level forward out of their team, compared to the Tigers who just brought back Tapau last week and Aaron Woods' knees, good to go. That's actually quite a good forward pack for West. So I think it's cheap to lay the 6.
I think so too.
We don't like laying 6, but sometimes girls don't like laying other things as well.
Yeah, true. Sometimes you just got to do it.
You twist your arm and you get it done.
Yeah, that's it. So we'll take West at a cheap 6 line, -6, and then we'll also take New Zealand under the 4 tries team total. Next up, we've got the Titans hosting the Dragons. This line's sitting the same at around 6, 6.5, and the total a bit lower, 37.5 to 38.5.
deja vu all over again.
Deja vu.
Because everything I just said about the Tigers is pretty much true of the Dragons here. I want to lay the points again. I've just got a team that is far superior. Now, I said there'd be value on the Titans coming into the end of the season. I thought they're actually a bit better than people realise. And we said on the pod last week we wanted to take them against the Raiders. We knew that they were the right side, but we were apprehensive when we saw that Caesar and LG weren't named. And then it came out on the weekend that LG was going to be included, and I thought, that just gives them just enough in attack, and their forward pack was fully healthy. They can get a result. But during that game, Greg Bird had a quadricep injury, and I believe Ryan James got suspended. So that's
Greg Bird's always injured, isn't he?
Yeah, well, those guys are two legit players, really.
Definitely.
They're Origin-level players that are both out for the Gold Coast, on top of Caesar, who's already out. So now they really are pretty depleted.
And the Dragons are getting some pieces back together.
Yeah, once again, the Dragons have named Edo Nabuli in an extended squad. He does make a difference. He's a big, fast winger.
Mm-hmm.
And they played on Thursday night, so they get a lot of time to prepare for this game.
Yes.
And if they win this game, they all but punch their ticket into the finals.
Yeah, exactly.
Which for a team that was top of the ladder at round 12, you'd expect that they would make the 8, but for a couple of weeks there, it looked like they might miss it.
Oh, definitely. And they do have to win, at least one of these next 2 games to lock up that top 8 spot, because they've got Manly breathing down their necks, and obviously, it's a long shot for Manly to overtake them, but even so, they're going to be fired up for this game, and then maybe have a bit of a rest next week in the last game of the season. So I agree, 6 is a cheap line to lay, and I think we definitely take St George minus the 6 points. But also, I think, the Titans D is going to struggle a little bit here. I know St George is a low-scoring team, but I think they're going to put on a few points here. I think we should maybe look at taking St George over their team total, seeing as it is such a low game total.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think they're going to roll, and I like their backline weapons. I mean, what's not to like about Josh Dugan? Benji and Widdop is a really solid halves combo, and Widdop doesn't miss kicks, so over 21.5, he can still miss one conversion, and 4 tries can get you the win there. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a comfortable win for St George. They're just a superior side here, which in trending in the right direction. The end of the season can't come quickly enough for the Titans.
No, it can't.
So it looks like we've got a second best bet there too.
Let's take that. So we'll take St George minus 6, and we'll take St George over their team total of, 21.5?
That's it.
All right, last game, Monday night to wrap up the second last round of the season. We got the Raiders hosting the Panthers. Now this line sitting at 5.5 to 6 points, and the total sitting at 43.5 to 44.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Look, the Raiders have got to be disappointed to not beat a Titans team without Caesar last week, and that they had to win that game to stay in touch with the 8. Their season's now over.
Yeah.
The Raiders have lost about 3 or 4 games this season, just about on the bell. And a couple probably on dodgy decisions as well. They probably should be in the 8. They've really performed well with the talent they've had. I'd say Ricky Stewart's done a good job. And down in Canberra, I think they will show up and they'll want to put on a good performance to their fans. But Penrith's a side that's just, had a bit of bad luck in close games, but just had probably the worst run of injuries of any team. This is a side that I picked to make the grand final at the start of the year, and they're going to be fishing in September. They're not going to even be in the 8. So, it's partly maybe not the best call on my behalf, but really to lose guys like Moylan and Peter Wallace. And,
they've just had a brutal run
Jamal
with injuries.
Dean Farrow. Honestly, I could name probably 8 or 9 guys that have played Origin or Test level football that spent significant time on the sidelines, including another one, Elijah Taylor, who is a New Zealand representative and the captain of the Panthers, and he did his knee on Thursday night. So they're quite depleted. But looking at the team list, I like the way they've mixed up their backline this week. They've got Dave Simmons and who's that beastly Mansour on the wing. Waka Blake is another beastly centre they've brought back into the team. They're playing Coruscant at 5'8" with Soward, and he's shown he's got a bit of skill, and that allows them to bring Seguiaro into hooker, which also I think is where he's best utilised. I think you play your best players on the field, and they've still got enough depth in their forward pack. They can move Peachy back into the back row. Still like this team enough to think that it's pretty much a coin toss game. And when you give me a coin toss game, look, anything could happen in this game, who knows? But when you can get 6 points with a team, I think it's worth a best bet. I
agree, and I think that's probably the only one that we'll take in there. And as you said, you don't really know what's going to happen in this game. I can see either side winning, but in the scenario where you're getting a converted try, I think that's worth taking the +6 with the Panthers. So that will wrap up the round. Do you want to run through the best bets really quickly?
I'd love to. We've got 7 best bets for the people here. Breaking news. I've actually got a brand new spot from Ev Sanity. We're going to hear from him again.
Let's hear it.
Ev Sanity is now on Facebook. Like the page to gain access to free downloadable mixes and stream Night Tremors radio from any connected device. Ev Sanity, proudly supporting the TryPod NRL betting podcast.
Yeah, good stuff, Evo. And that's just a little bit of a taste of his mix that he puts out. I think he does them every few days, or just whenever he's bored, I think. But sometimes when he's bored, other people are bored, so, hop on, watch it. Sometimes there's nothing better to do at 12 o'clock on a weeknight.
And he's our producer as well, and it can be hard dealing with Ev sometimes because I get up for work at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm awake between kind of 5 a.m. and 9 or 10 at night, and Evo only gets up at 4 in the afternoon.
He lives in a different world.
Yeah, things are different in his world, but he does drop bangers, so check that out. We heard that for the first time. Here are our best bets. I hope you guys get a chance to write these down and go out and
grab a pen and paper, write them down.
All right, we got the Bunnies +4. Should be, we think they'll win outright, but grab the 4 points because it could be quite an arm wrestle on Thursday night. Definitely be a good game. Take the Bronx under 20.5. We don't think they'll get that many points against the switched-on Bunnies. And take the Bunnies over 17.5 because we do expect, even without GI, they can still put some points up. We're laying the 6 with Wes, and we're going to take New Zealand Warriors under 4 tries. We're laying 6 with St George, and we've got St George over 21.5 as well.
Yep.
We don't often play teams over, but we really think they're just a class above the Titans.
Are. And they've got some motivation there as well.
That's it. I think they roll. And we're going to take the Panthers. Sometimes when you take a bit of an ugly side, you've got to kind of hold your nose, cover your eyes, and just do it.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And as you said, it was the dream crusher for Canberra last week. They lost a game where they, if they won that, they're well in contention for the 8. And sometimes, you lose that game and you just fall out of touch of the 8 or, whatever it is. And it's just a huge letdown spot.
And look at our bet on the Eels last week. I mean, geez, they gave you a heart attack if you bet on them. They did so many things to lose the game. It was a rainy game. They had the lead and they were throwing crazy, no-look passes. They couldn't complete a set. Is that too much to ask?
But let me tell you this much. You may have been having a heart attack if you were betting them straight up at $7 odds. But if you're taking our 3 best bets, Storm under 32.5, Eels over 10 points, and Eels plus 20.5, you were sitting pretty with 3 winning slips for the last half hour of the game.
Knights plus 20.5.
Yeah.
Knights over 10. You're
sitting pretty, yeah. So, we do suggest, obviously sometimes you sprinkle a little bit on the money line when there is some value, and obviously on the money, when we say the money line, we mean the straight up prices, which is the price for the team just to win the game. But obviously, bet all the line bets as well, because, you're betting plus 20, and if they're winning, going into the last 20 minutes of the game, you've all but sewn up a ticket,
Yeah, no, good call. These are supposedly 50-50 lines. But I swear, we're winning a lot of these really comfortably. We're showing that they are anything but 50-50.
Yeah.
So when we say it's a best bet, we're usually right. Who else is usually right about best bets is Nettie.
Yes.
The guy's a prodigy.
Yes, he is
the guy
a prodigy.
cannot be stopped.
Yeah, he's a monster.
He is a bad man.
Because, we've been running Put Your Tit Where Your Mouth Is for a long, long time now. And I think we've had one back-to-back winner in the past before Nettie. And how many's he won in a row now? I think he's won 3 or 4 or something.
At least 3. He's been at the top for weeks. He just can't be stopped. He's making profit every single week.
Yeah.
We'll show you his winning bet slip. If you haven't checked it out already, you can check it out on our page, and he'll be back again, defending the title again.
Definitely.
And you've got to check out the bets this guy's putting down. He was killing it in golf. He's been picking rugby league winners, and he knows his stuff. He's already cashed 2 out of 2 NFL preseason games.
Yeah.
So the guy knows his stuff about.
And the thing is, for all you guys out there, put your tit where your mouth is. We've been getting a lot of people that wanted to sort of get involved and show us the bets that they're doing. But if you want to get involved with that, let us know. We choose 2 new challenges every week. So hit us up, inbox us or whatnot if you do want to get involved, and we might choose you for next week's round.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of getting involved, We've got Take on Tom. His AFL multi won the first 4 legs and lost on the 5th leg.
It was brutal
on the weekend, and it was with a favourite as well. The
yeah,
D's.
The D's copped a D from them.
Copped a massive D. As I said, Pringle's Premier League prediction. He won me some money on the weekend. Picked a draw, scoring draw.
Yep.
In the I think it was Spurs Stoke game.
He knows his stuff.
He really does. So if you like EPL or you're an uninitiated, check out his post because he breaks it down really well, and we appreciate that. We're always posting up good promos and good links. There's a really good special at the moment. If you don't have William Hill, deposit just $30 and get 100
100
free
worth of
bets.
bonus bets. And you don't even have to use that on one single bet. You can break that down however you want, which is a really good promo because, I mean, you put down 30 and you get, 130 to play with. Plus, they've constantly got promos like, $50 bets on, baseball or rugby league live bets. And if you lose, you get your money back.
On the weekend, the Cowboys were $2 odds on William Hill. So that was basically free money as well.
Yeah, that's giving away money.
And as we've said before, if you started with $100 and just bet every pod best bet, you've got over $5,000 profit now. So,
and
$100
you were never down.
Exactly. $100 goes a long way.
Yep.
That's just about all we've got time for. It's been another massive pod.
Good
Better
week.
wrap it up as our guest never does.
Yes, true. Big
But shout out to him.
Heathy.
Thanks, Heathy, again. Have a great weekend, guys, and please gamble responsibly.